Hello and welcome to the Wellness Esquire Podcast. I am your host, Ariella. I absolutely loved this conversation with Gwen and Whitney, who lead Advos Legal, a law firm built around human values and that has reimagined how to serve clients and empower their legal team. They bring lawyers together through Advos Pro as well, where they guide their community to build law firms based on their own innovative point system that they and their clients absolutely love. These are two delightful and powerful women who went into law to have an impact, and they are doing exactly that. And they're doing it with a focus on joy, well-being, and connection. I know you're going to get so much value out of this conversation. Take a listen. Account that she will.
There she is.
Oh, goody.
Who knows what the answer was?
I'm so glad that worked, because I was just saying to Gwen that this is my first time, which is very exciting, interviewing two people at the same time. And while I'd thought about, hey, isn't this fun? Like a new way of having these conversations, it hadn't occurred to me until like about a minute ago. Does that change anything about the way people need to enter into the recording? So I started to worry, wait, I didn't look into that as an option. Is there like another way to send links and indicate like, no, we want multiple people here? And so I'm glad that worked out, because I didn't have a plan for that. A link was coming, but I wasn't convinced it was going to work any differently.
All good.
How fantastic. I'm so thrilled to talk to both of you. And I like to do this in such a casual way. And the reason I started this podcast was because I was having all of these conversations with lawyers who have this focus on well-being, because I do. And I would find my way to other people, and I would have the conversations and find the like-minded people and know that they're out there, but I'd find them one at a time. And each time it would be thrilling. And each time I'd think, why did it take so long for me to find them? Yeah. And that so often when I'm connecting with lawyers that aren't part of these circles, they have no idea that anyone is having these conversations. And they're so thrilled to discover their first person who they can be authentic with and vulnerable and say the things they feel like they're not supposed to say out loud, and look for different ways to practice. And so I just thought, well, what if I just put a microphone in front of us when I'm having these conversations with everybody, and highlight that we're actually having these conversations far more regularly than a lot of people realize. And there are so many more of us than most people realize. And what if we could just develop this massive, intentional legal community with everyone just being like, hey, we know that we're working in a broken system and we're not okay with it, and we have other options. Let's do it together and change the whole thing as a group and help each other through it. So that's ultimately the goal here. And so thank you for being part of this discussion, because of having done all the work that you've already done and continue to do.
Well, first, thank you. Thank you. Right. I love what you're up to. I love, and I get it, right? Whitney and I have had lots of one-on-ones, and we're like, there's so many incredible nuggets in that conversation that we heard and we had a chance to hear and share, but like, how do we exponentially create momentum there? And we're all like, it's that the power of a community, right? We're all on this journey. We're all doing the things we're doing, but we're doing it with our one life experience, right? And so collectively, like, we get there so much faster.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I was just saying to you, I have not interviewed two people at the same time before. So bear with me as I learn how to do that. This will be fun. Either way.
Oh, for sure. We're very good at collaboration.
Well, you do these conversations together, so I assume that you've got this nailed. And I'm so excited to have this conversation. So I want to start with going back just a few years and ask each of you, what led you to law school in the first place? And just kind of in a nutshell, walk me through your career until the point, or around the point, whatever's easier for you, that you started this law firm that you launched together. Gwen, we'll start with you.
Okay. I actually, very young person, middle school-ish, and I wrote a paper on Brown versus Board of Education. And it, like, this seed planted in my brain that a lawyer could have a huge impact. One person from, frankly, humble beginnings, right? And they could have an outsized impact. And so, like, stake in the ground, that's what I was going to do, and charged forward. 10 years out of law school, I sort of picked my head up and went, wait, how did I get here? Right? like
I've heard that before.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I had this dream and I had this passion, and then I did well in school. And so had some really incredible opportunities, but then I picked my head up and said, how did I get here? This isn't what drove me to become a lawyer in the first place. So how do I integrate what is really important to me with the practice of law and the privilege of practicing law, which I think gets lost sometimes. So that in a quick nutshell was the winding path that got us very close to starting the firm.
Amazing. We're going to get into the parts that didn't feel right.
Right. Sure. I will say too, I had 2.5 years at a workplace wellness company right before we launched the firm. And so that was eye-opening on so many levels. Just that the belief that it couldn't be different, and then realizing actually it can be, that you have to bill by the hour. Actually, you don't, right? So a lot of those sacred cows in the profession.
Make good hamburger.
Yes.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
Whitney, what's your story?
Kind of a funny moment when I realized, like, oh, law school is probably the thing for me. So I had 2 women in my life who were just examples of professional badassery, right? My grandmother was an OBGYN when there weren't women physicians, much less surgeons. My aunt, her daughter, was a lawyer at a prominent firm in Jacksonville. And I think she really loved what she did. In fact, I know she loved the work she did. And she had a real mastery of it. And by the end of her career was a bankruptcy judge. So, had really achieved some success there. But I also saw her working her face off and, not having sort of the family life that I think she probably intended. So it wasn't like oh yeah, I want that. I want to go be a lawyer. So much as like the substance of those professions was really interesting to me. So I went to undergrad and I decided I was going to major in like political science, international relations, but I was going to take the prereqs for med school. And so you go in and you sign up for, yeah, I know.
She's crazy in all the best ways.
So I'm gonna like leave all these things open to myself, right? I don't know what I want to be, but I can go ahead and take the prereqs. And when you sign up for your political science classes, you have 3 days a week, an hour a day of class, you get 3 credits for the class, right? You sign up for what organic chemistry or whatever the prereq was, and it's the class is 3 hours of credit for 3 hours in class, and then there's this lab that is also 3 or 4 hours a week and gets 1 credit. And so I was like, let me just see about how this works. And so I think I went to like a week of classes and was like, this is unjust, right? And when you look at that and you go, unjust, like that's how you should go to law school. I don't know if that's a really good reason to go to law school, but that certainly, when I look back, like that's one of the moments that for me was like, oh yeah, this is how I think about things.
I understand that. And I think a lot of people have their own version of, you look back and you wonder, that's the thing that made me go to law school. That's what led me here. Yeah. But, you're 17-ish, 18, maybe a little older, maybe younger. Like, what do you know? Something has to lead you in a direction. And so something like that
I knew I wanted a career that would let me have impact, right? Like if I think about those 2 potential paths, I knew I wanted to be impactful. I wanted a career where I could make change and really kind of be a force, and And I think that was part of what was so attractive about lawyering was the many ways you could do that, right? The many ways that you could take that superpower and that critical thinking and the logic and the reasoning and kind of creative problem solving and have some real impact. And I think, as you kind of play through the evolution of our careers and into our practice, I think it kind of shows through that we both were people who said we want to make a difference, and it kind of didn't matter what room we were in, we were going to make a difference in it.
So what did that first part of your career look like that ultimately led to the two of you deciding still want to practice, but not that way?
I had the shorter stint in kind of the BigLaw traditional model. I was only there like 2.5 years. So I was in a bigger firm doing some litigation and some kind of employer side counsel, and got poached to go in-house. And so pretty quickly, I had these two experiences back to back where it was like, oh, these are completely different ways of thinking about things, right? That in the law firm, you're the widget, like you're the star of the show, and everything revolves around like you getting your hours and winning the argument, and you're not like, you just don't have the same filter on things that you do when you're part of the business team or part of the client. So in-house, you're sitting there as part of the management team going, I don't care how long it took you. I don't care that you won every point you argued. Did we get the result we wanted? Did we get the contract signed? Did we, whatever it was, it's the business goal. And you pretty quickly realize, like, I'm not the widget. I'm not the star of the show. The organization is. And how are we going to get where we want to go and get everybody to be part of the team that gets us there? And so that was sort of my first two steps, and then jump the fence. We sold our company, and I got to jump the fence and help run a business unit. And so then you've got P&L responsibility. And if you thought you had learned some things about being part of the client before, really learn it then, right? I was the client of both the in-house and outside legal teams. And that shifted my perspective too. And then when that phase was kind of coming to its end, I had a little bit of a breather, was able to stay home with my kids for a little bit, which was really cool. And then needed to make a shift and let my husband take a turn with a little breather. And that was when a colleague connected me with Gwen. And Gwen, who I had been hearing about for, I don't know, like nearly a decade, from this colleague who had said we were so alike and all of these things. And Kay, the person who connected us, is just this ultimate connector, and is just so generous with that. It's remarkable that we had never met, the amount that I had heard about Gwen before this.
Wow. Okay. Long-term matchmaking. So what happened when the two of you connected? Were you both already thinking that you wanted something different, that you were launching a firm? What led to, hey, we've now met, this new person, and then, oh, now we have a law firm? How did that go?
I think I'm showing up to meet Gwen because Gwen also knows everybody who I might need to know, and like can help make some connections or point me in the direction of what my next gig is. And I'm pretty sure that when we sat down, like one of the first things out of my mouth was, I don't know what I want to be next, but it's not lawyering. Like I'm not looking for a law firm role. I'm thinking like I have this business mindset and I like to solve the sticky problems, and maybe it's a COO something, maybe it's something without a real name. I don't know. Help. Right. So like I sit down, I say that, and she's like,
well, and for better or for worse, like I don't understand the word no. So it might be why I became a lawyer, but I heard her say that and I was like, oh, yay. Like he doesn't know what I'm up to yet. That we'll figure this out.
So what did you already have in your mind?
I had launched the firm officially in January, and this was right before Memorial Day, and we had more work than we could handle. And it's really interesting, those decision points. And So I was looking at space and I said, if it's just me and the team, then I'm going to rent this space. But if I end up with a partner, I'm going to rent this space that's beautiful and like phenomenal across the hall. And I walked away meeting Whitney. I came home and I told my husband, and I still remember it like so vividly. Like he's like, I remember where he's standing, I remember and I said, I just met my future partner. Just like that.
Wow.
Just like
one lunch.
Because,
one lunch.
Right.
That was it.
When you know,
Yeah.
you know.
I was going to say, because she saw all the things that were wrong with the profession that I did, and was still very passionate about the profession. Even though she said, I'm not going to go practice law, she still loved it.
Yeah.
Right. And I could sense that, and I could feel that, and creative and business person, and had been in-house. And so had seen it from that perspective. I just knew. So, and we weren't dumb, right? So like, we didn't sign an operating agreement the next week. We worked together. That was Memorial Day. We signed the lease for the bigger space. We started working together that summer. And then by January 1st of the following year, we were wed.
Yeah.
We were partners.
At that beginning stage, which was about 10 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
2015. Yes.
At that point, what were the pieces that you understood were broken about the system and you wanted to do differently?
Where to begin?
I know. We lead and talk a lot about the billable hour because it is so tangible. It is so obvious. I say often, right? If you're winning in the game of billable hours, that means you're losing in every other aspect of your life. And you've taken people who are driven and, right, they want the gold star, they want the A+, and you've put them in a business model that says, okay, the only way you win is to spend as much time as you possibly can doing this, right? It's a terrible recipe. Then you add to it the client experience, right? The client's like, I'm afraid to call you because I have no idea what that call is going to cost or what it's going to get into, or you've created an adversarial relationship with your client where you're not aligned. And just as a business model, who would design that way? But that's what we lead with. But deeper than that, like, you have the ability to design a business and a life you love. Right. And right. And so like, that's the easy thing to point to, but it goes so much deeper. Like, are you taking really healthy vacations? Are you stepping away from the business? Are you taking care of yourself and each other? And it becomes part of literally our weekly meetings, right? We talk about books we read, and the meaning for the whole team, right? Books we read and restaurants we've seen, and just like, we are whole humans who are showing up in this workplace that wants to support the whole human. And so it starts like, that's the point that's really pointed, but it's so much deeper than that.
There was, when I was in-house, we had the pleasure of working with a business consultant who became kind of a mentor to me, Hal Resnick. And I just adored the way he, like, with so much love, said to me and to our management team on several occasions, if you're not getting the results that you want from your business, I'm sorry to tell you, your business is perfectly designed to produce those results. So, shot to the heart, Hal, right? So then he's like, good news and bad news. Like, bad news, you have a machine that's perfectly designed to deliver bad results. Good news, it's an engineering problem, not a personal failure, right? So like, you actually have a design problem. So
well said.
Yeah, I wish I could take credit. Right? Why, yes, it is. But it really, I think there's so much freedom in that. And particularly as lawyers who sort of have this, like, we're trained on precedent. And so the fact that it has been this way before must mean that is the way it should be. Right. And not that we don't advocate for change and those kinds of things, but there is a bit of that in how we're like raised as lawyers, right? That it's, I think, sometimes necessary and refreshing to remind ourselves that we actually can build something that gives us different results. And we have the power to do that. And oh, by the way, this thing that we run as lawyers, this law firm or law practice, is a business. And so it is just like all other business.
What?
I know. Shock and awe.
Radical.
Mhm.
You're so
Yeah.
radical.
And so, you get to design it, and you can do it differently if you want different results than what tradition or precedent says you should have.
Mind-blowing. So I know that now, after 10 years, you have this P3 method, which is how you price your services and work with clients. I bet it didn't start out that way, though. Or did it? I mean, how similar, how did you start out working with clients in that way? Since you were anti the billable hour, what did you start with? And how did that then evolve into what you have now?
So when I met Gwen, she already was, I think, mostly not billing by the hour. But the question that we were wrestling with was, if you aren't going to bill by the hour, bill by the what? Right? We wanted to know for ourselves and for our clients, like, how do we measure? How can we be accountable to delivering what we've said we're going to deliver? And I mean, speak for myself, I'm a gold star seeker. If you tell me I need, 8 hours a day, I'm going to give you 8.5, right? Like, Gwen said it earlier, gold stars, A plus, right? And so if I don't have a way to measure what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm going to be a little adrift. And I needed that ability to quantify. But I also, I think when you're building something new, if you just try to say to a client who's used to at least having hours that they can look at to check the bill, if you just say, oh, just trust me on this, it's going to be, X dollars and you'll get what you get, because I know how much you should get for that. That feels a little unhinged. As a client, I wouldn't love that either. So we knew we needed a system. And we tried lots of ways, probably every way, not to do it right. We did. And I think the big thing everyone thinks it would be is flat fees. And we tried flat fees. We tried scoping specific projects, and you get really, oh my gosh, I found one of our early proposals recently. And the amount of time we were putting into those proposals, trying to lawyer the scope. Are you thinking about what are all the things that have to be in this project, and what are the boundaries, and when are we outside of scope, and what do we do if we're outside of scope, and all of that. And also just kind of the approval seeking that you do when you're charting a new path. And look, it's real. We have a way. I think we had like an 8 to 10 page, 8 to 10 slide PowerPoint that was, a lot. And then 10 minutes after the client says yes, the scope has changed. Something new has come up. There are new facts. The client makes a different choice, and now we've got to rescope. And that whole thing is just exhausting. And so that was pretty quickly evident that was not going to be the way. So then a friend of the firm who I love having good thought partners. And Michael White is nothing if not a good thought partner. And he one day was sitting down with us, and we're kind of puzzling through what is going to be the way, and how are we going to quantify in a way that can be flexible and durable through complex work. We're not talking about just doing very simple, very clearly defined things. We're talking about M&A and capital raising and all sorts of creative projects that our clients need to do as they're growing. And he one day said, software developers have figured this out. And that Agile Scrum methodology, where they're quantifying knowledge work into, they call it sprint points. That's kind of what you need to do. I think you can think about it that way. And so we dug in there and found a variation on that theme that really works beautifully for legal work.
That's so cool. And I love I love how you got there, because there are also, my husband started out his career as an engineer, and there are things where he'll look at, different ways that the legal profession operates, and even looking at the way we redline, and he's like, this is so stupid. We've been doing this for so long. We too are knowledge workers, and there is a better way. What are you people doing?
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love not only where you've landed and your description around it, but the inherent process of going through trial and error and mistakes. Or maybe it's not even right to call them mistakes, just the process of learning how to do this differently. And I want to talk more about that and sort of just your process in going through that experience, because I don't know if you've heard, but lawyers tend to be very, I have to do it right on the first try. That tends to be our approach, and that's not really how the world works and how trying new things and evolving work. and it can be that fear of making mistakes and just not knowing exactly where it's going to end, where you begin, can lead us to just go nowhere. So talk about what that evolution really, looked like, but maybe even more so felt like, and how you navigated that together, knowing that right now I'm working with clients and it's the wrong system, but I don't have a better one. This is not going to be sustainable, but I don't know what to do tomorrow.
Yeah. There's a couple things that come to my mind. One is we got very clear about who our ideal client was, and who we can serve, who we're going to serve really well, where can we add tremendous value, and landed on growth stage companies that didn't have an in-house counsel, because we'd been in-house, right? And so we knew the value of that strategic thinking and project management mindset, that if you're going to a big law firm, you're not going to find. You're, needle in a haystack. Maybe you would find the one, but generally speaking, that's not how we're trained. It's not how we think. We wait for the client to tell us to do the thing, and we do it, right? And we, you're general counsel for a while, and you're used to saying, okay, tell me why you're doing this. Let me understand where you want to go, and then let me help be the thought partner of helping you get there. I'm not just going to take the order. And I'm often going to say, not the way you think. I'm not going to say no, but I'm going to ask why. And we're going to work on together figuring out how to get where you want to go. If you want to be a successful in-house lawyer, right? You're not going to say no to everything that gets asked of you. And so we got super clear on who we wanted to represent. And then honestly, they wanted to see us successful. They loved the model that said, I know exactly what I'm budgeting. You're going to tell me when I'm on track or off track. And so it turned out that our clients tended to be tech companies, and they could continue that conversation of t-shirt sizing and, small, medium, and large size points, and true project management, which it was absolutely missing when we went to look for that in 2015. And we ended up having to use some software that is not specific for legal, because everything that was specific for legal was some variation of a task manager, right? That it wasn't actually, project management. And there's so much value in being able to explain to the client, here's where we are in this project, right? And you're on track, off track, or here are the variables that have happened that we didn't anticipate, right? It's the power of communication that, again, things that we did not learn in law school. We didn't learn to talk about price. We didn't learn to talk about project management. And we didn't learn how to communicate anything other than you're going to win the case or not win the case, or win this motion or not win the, right? Like, and that's not what businesses really need. They need that, or they value very much the thought partnership. Yeah. So definitely, like picking the right clients was a huge component of how we were able to iterate, because they're iterating too, and they're not afraid to give us good feedback. Some of the examples that come to my mind, there was a time period where we were reporting, we've got this great system, it can spit out reports in all the different formats. And we were sending these reports to our clients as an attachment or as a link, right? Well, actually nobody's opening the link and no one's looking at the
No one in the
attachment.
history of the link
Right.
ever opened the link other than
And so we had to like experiment with where can technology be amazing and where do we really need to be white glove?
Yeah.
Where do we need to like distill it down and make it make more sense and summarize it and deliver it to them so they can consume it and make good decisions, not just say, I told you were off track because I sent you that report. Like that's not actually meeting the client where they are. So
yeah.
That's how we got really comfortable with experimenting.
Well, and I think that experimentation and like being feedback rich is a big part of the mindset that we had to have in order to learn and grow and to be comfortable in the not knowing the exact answer, but knowing we're getting closer to it, was like being willing to do small experiments and to say, this is how I'm doing it right now. And I'm going to learn and we're going to iterate. And we're lawyers, we have thick skin. So we can take the feedback from the client and say, okay, that didn't feel great to you. What would be better? How do we solve for that? And sometimes it was feedback as simple as the client, if we can talk about price on the front end and we can say, this project's going to be 2 or 3 points, and the client can do that math and say, oh, this is a half point value to me, right? I don't want to solve a $500 problem with a $5,000 solution. Let's not do that. And letting the client give us that feedback, we learn the client better, but then we also have the opportunity to give them other options. Here's some other ways to solve for it, or some ways to address it without needing us. And so you learn sort of how to navigate those conversations with the client when you can be open to the feedback and not take it personally, right? Going back to, this isn't a personal failure. This is an engineering problem. How are we redesigning? Being open to that, I think, was in hindsight, a big key to how we got from there to here.
The other thing I will add real quick is I chose a great partner in it. So like, as we were going along, I had spent more years, as Whitney referred, more years in BigLaw, more years in-house. And frankly, that there's a ton of value in that. And it was one of the obstacles, because your point about perfectionism and, like it needing to be perfect and needing to look perfect. Like I had spent more years in that world, and having someone to reflect, someone to like run it by, learn from, grow from, give feedback to, right? How is this serving the client? Asking that question and realizing that a lot of the ways I had learned to do things were almost CYA.
Oh, very
right?
CYA.
More than they really were value to the client. But they were so ingrained, it was hard to let go of those things. So
sure. Yeah. Well, you understood on a certain level that this isn't working, but then it takes so much more work emotionally also to realize how many more layers you have to dig through to really unravel everything that you think you know or believe.
Right. And our third partner in Advos Pro is not a lawyer, for that part of that same reason. Is like, because she's Lean Six Sigma, but systems and operations and process, she's very much looking at the process with a business mindset. And even, with our different experiences, she'll be like, really? You really doing that?
Explain.
Why? And I'm like, you're right. I don't have a good explanation. Maybe there's a better way.
It's amazing how much that fresh perspective set from someone who hasn't been trained the way that we have.
Absolutely.
Can just come in and say, why on earth would you do that? And then we can stop and go, I have no idea.
It's a very good question.
Right.
It's a great question. I can't answer it. And I'm now a bit concerned about why myself. Yeah. Let's dig in.
Yes.
So you mentioned in one of your examples, Whitney, a little bit about the point system. What can you share just about, for those
Yeah.
lawyers who may not be familiar with the Agile system and how software engineers operate, why are we talking about points? And not only why are we talking about points, but how does that, a lot of what both of you talked about with the client experience, that inherent is that in that with this point system is transparency with the client. So everybody knows what's going on routinely and you can plan better. So how does this point system work, practically speaking, and benefit everybody involved?
So, all right, the best analogy that I can think of is we're taking a client's matter and we're breaking this matter down into its component parts and we're sizing those pieces into points. And think about the points like tokens at an arcade. So, fairly universal experience. If I give you 10 tokens and you go into the arcade for the first time, you maybe have seen skee ball and you're like, I'm going to play skee ball 10 times, right? Then you get in there and over in the corner is laser tag. And it has lights going on and there's much more happening and it takes longer and it's just more complexity, more bells and whistles. Laser tag is not 1 point, right? 1 token. Laser tag is 4 or 5. And so you look at that and you say, I thought I wanted skee ball a whole bunch of times. Now I want to play laser tag. I can trade my tokens. I can buy more tokens if I want, or I can choose to use the same tokens and use them differently. And that is sort of at its core, the way we think about our work is points are based on size, complexity, and urgency, kind of a value rating. So it's not, people always say, well, isn't it just hours? Like, haven't you just said, well, 1 point is equal to X hours? And I think everyone who implements the system probably uses some measure of hours in the beginning as they're trying to get their arms around, like what is the real complexity as between this item and that item. But if you keep doing that, you're going to run yourself into the ground, because when you work on a price for value basis, you now have an incentive to go get more efficient. And that's where we look at this thing and go, oh, right, you're running a business. And so, everything else that you buy an item from or a service, I can understand the value to me and the price that I'm going to pay for it. And do I really care how much effort someone has to put in to do it? No, I really don't. And if you can do it faster for me, would I rather that than if you take longer? Generally, yeah. I want it done well, but I don't want longer for the sake of longer. And so divorcing those two things and saying, I actually want the value and I'm happy with the price. I'm thrilled to pay this price for the thing. And I want you incentivized, dear lawyer, to go do your best work for me and to do it as efficiently as you can. And that's great. Let's go do it. So the points really are about size, complexity, urgency, which is great. Because when you're billing by the hour, you don't get the midnight hour does not cost more than the noon hour, unfortunately. And the I have to have it right now hour, where you're causing all sorts of internal kind of junk that doesn't have to be there and kind of damaging yourself. All of those things get to be more about a business decision and more about the value and the expertise you bring. I know in our world, there are a couple of things we do, like a term sheet when we're doing M&A work. And I think about a term sheet as a pretty small item, but the value of that term sheet to the overall transaction is tremendous. And so thinking about, divorcing the time it takes to draft a 3-page term sheet from the value of it and the price for it is pretty important.
So for both of you, how does working with this value-based or value-oriented point system impact your well-being and how you're actually able to show up every day as yourself, feeling like you can show up authentically and in a sustainable way because you get to sleep and take care of yourself? And Whitney, I know you posted, I don't know, somewhat recently about, well, I'm in charge of how I work and operate. And so when I have a family health thing going on, I'm able to go off to wherever that is and work from your mom's porch. Yeah. And that's just the way I get to do this. And that works for me.
For sure. No, I mean, I think that's a huge part of it is the flexibility, the understanding that the money we make in revenue is not tied to the hours we burn, and instead is about how can we leverage systems, leverage technology. And I talk all the time about technology doesn't just mean you've got to go deploy the robots, right? It doesn't have to mean an army of AI. Sometimes technology is little t tech, like checklists and delegation, and document automation or whatever. There's a ton of stuff that can be lower case t tech that's really impactful. But when you have divorced literally the number of hours that you had your nose at the laptop for the day from your ability to make a living and to serve your clients really well, it's pretty game changing. It really is. And I think it even changes like the client relationships. Like in the example you're talking about, I was still doing client work. I was sitting on my mom's back porch, waiting to take her to an appointment, talking to a client about selling his business. And we spent the first probably 10 minutes talking about family medical stuff and just how grateful we both are that we have businesses that let us help our family members when they need it and sustain ourselves really well. And I think clients value that. They understand it and they feel the care for them as well. So, Gwen, I'm sure you've got some good thoughts on that one.
Yeah. I'll add, creativity is a component of it. So I remember very distinctly being a partner in a law firm, drafting a purchase agreement and, pulling the document up and filling in the names and, and thinking to myself, I've not invested the time to figure out how to automate this, how to create the systems and the processes someone else could do the first draft. And I probably never will, because I get incentivized to spend time doing this. And if I fast forward my life, 20 years from now, I'm going to be doing the same thing, which was one of the turning points for me. I was like, absolutely not, right? Like I need to be creative. I need to evolve. I need to feel like we're moving in a direction that's growth, right? Growth and learning. And so today, right, every time we do something, we're thinking about, could someone else be, literally, I look at my week, could someone else be doing this? It would be new for them. It would be novel for them. It would be interesting for them. Like, what of my work can I take off my plate so that I am really doing the work that only I can do, that I love doing, right? That's valuable. And, Whitney touched on a little bit about the humanity of it, right? It's not just our experience as a human, but we get to know our clients in a way. They're willing to tell us things and share things with us, because the beginning of those meetings there's no clock. There's no clock. So, right, if they're, whatever is happening in their life, like we get the details as if we were part of the team that cares about them. And one of the stories that has been really impactful to me, obviously, we're talking to people who don't have the experience of our model. And so there was a particular investment banker, friend of the firm, and my age-ish, our age-ish, and he had all of these experiences, really, really, really successful, raised capital, and got to a point, and when he was talking with us, he was like, as I'm talking to you, I realize I don't know a thing about any of the lawyers who've ever done work for me in the 20 years that I've been a banker. I don't know if they have a family. I don't know what their hobbies are. I don't know where they're going. I know nothing about them as a human, because I understood that he tells the story. I was trained as a young investment banker to picture a stack of $100 bills going up in flames every minute that I'm talking to the lawyer. Right?
Not wrong.
They couldn't get much more not wrong.
It's quite but visual,
right?
And
it's going to change the way you interact with your attorneys. And So it goes both ways, right? Like we get to be more human, but we get to know our clients better and they get to be more human. And right, like that's why we went to law school, right? We went to law school to be helpful and human and the model that says I only care about how much time you spent takes that out of it.
I want to add on this piece from a conference we were at recently. We were talking about this and someone said to me, how do you know that you're getting value out of every minute of your lawyers? It was basically the question. Like how, if you're measuring these points and you're not tracking people's time, like how do you know you're squeezing every bit of value out of your people? Right. And I was kind of like, I don't want to. Right? I want to know when we set a metric for our team that we are, if, hey, here's the gold star. If you produce this many points and, you're producing quality work, then you're profitable. And, we can build incentives around all of that, but you then can make choices about, do I want to, when I have hit my target for the day or the week or the sprint or whatever, do I want to work more? Do I need more time away? Do I need time with my family? Is it rest? Is it, all the things that make us whole, healthy humans? That's the point, is that we can build this value-based exchange where we also value the humans in our business. And whether it's, us as the owners of the firm or our team, what we want is a thriving team. We're not trying to squeeze every drop out of everyone and leave them wrung out on the floor. That is not the point. And I think the question was just so like, oh yeah, that is actually what our traditional billable hourly model is after. It's like, let me squeeze every bit of it out of you, leave you wrung out, and then ask for a little more.
Well, and the truth is, too, that with the points, you're closer to the value that the client is actually paying you for. So if I'm just tracking time, then that's not really taking into account how much gets written off, how much gets paid. Is it written off because we picked a bad client, which has nothing to do necessarily with the associate billing the time, right? Like there's so many variables in there versus the client is going to pay for the point. Now we can measure, was the point delivered in a quality way? And there's all these secondary layers that go along with the system that measures quality and measures, did you get it done, which is what the client cares about, not did you work on it, right? Did you spend hours drafting, but you never actually delivered anything to me, right? Like there's a disconnect where we think that spending time on it means it added value. Maybe not, right? So it's been a great journey to like substitute that out.
How have you been able to recognize the impact of caring for your own and well-being and for the well-being of everyone on your team, the impact on the work that you're doing for clients, the experiences that you're having with those clients, the interactions, and just the outcomes and the overall success of your firm, as opposed to doing it, how are you squeezing everything out of each lawyer? That approach, I think we can all agree, does not work and it's not sustainable. But for those who are new to this idea, how do you even understand the connection between the well-being and performance, and however you consider, what success is?
So I think of 3 key metrics. And Gwen, I'm curious if you have a different lens on how you would measure that, or what comes to mind for you. We measure client NPS. So, the Net Promoter Score on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend Advos Legal to a friend or colleague? And we know it's working on that side because we have the legal industry on a scale of -100 to 100. I think our average is in like the low to mid 30s as an industry, right? 32, 34, something like that. Up from something in the high 20s. So yay. But ours has been consistently in the mid 90s. And it's not because we're selective about who we survey. We survey everyone, and we take the feedback to heart. Right? We've gotten some great negative feedback that has helped us to shape the firm along the way. So that's, it has happened, but it's helped us to get clear on who we serve well and how we serve them well. So we know that the client experience is great. We do the same kind of survey with our team. So we do an internal employee NPS, and it's also high 90s reliably. And we ask for feedback and we talk about the feedback. People can give it anonymously, and we're talking about it with the team. And we want to know if something doesn't feel great about your experience working here. Like, let's talk about it. Let's solve for it. Let's redesign. And the third one, this is maybe says more about who I am than what the holistic measures are. But the third one's profitability, right? In a practice like this, where we are able to, and it kind of comes with the team experience piece, right? Where we are able to do the things we need to do to be healthy and whole and be with our people and all of that. We are still in a really profitable practice. And I would say more profitable than we would be on an hourly basis. And so more joyful and more profitable is a pretty good place to sit.
More joyful and more profitable. I like that.
Yeah.
What about you, Gwen?
You know what? I just would add similar, like back to we measure what matters. So if it's not ours, what matter? And then you look at our core values, and we have a metric for each of our core values. But the other part is anecdotally, right? Like talking to our team and hearing. One of our paralegals said once she started going to some of the paralegal organization meetings, and she came back and she was like, I couldn't go anywhere else. Right. Like I'm hearing the complaints that they have and the way they're being treated and the way their experience of working is. And I realize like how incredibly different it is working here. So those stories, right, help us to make sure we're listening really well. That back to the feedback rich. We've got a whole system and process around how we share feedback and how we make sure it's not personal, right? It's back to it's a design. Either maybe you didn't get trained on it, our system didn't work, right? Or you're a human and you had a bad week, right? Like that happens too. So,
so talk about that. How do you, because we all have bad weeks, but it often feels like we're not, in this industry, it feels like you're not allowed to. So when you have a bad week, not if, because it's a when, how do you manage that internally and with your team and personally and make it clear to the team, it's going to happen, it's okay, and here's how we deal with it? And whether you kind of know proactively or in hindsight you realize, didn't realize how much I was struggling, and now we've got to fix some stuff.
So I want to take this one because I want to brag on Gwen. Gwen has this beautiful way of thinking about, it wasn't a bad week, right? It's like there's some aspect of last week that didn't work. So in our team meetings, every Monday, toward the end of the meeting, we look at what's ahead for this week, but we also talk about what worked and what didn't from last week. And just as a group, like what worked well for me and what didn't. What did I struggle with last week? And that's probably not in my nature, as that introspection, reflection. I'm just like charging forward and not really paying enough attention, I think, is my tendency to like not look at it and learn the lesson. And it's been great, I think, for learning the lesson myself. But the other thing that's beautiful is when you create this environment where we're all talking about, from the top all the way down and all the way around, we're talking about what worked and what didn't. We're also, you hear it with a filter of how can we all help, right? What if somebody was drowning last week, maybe I can look at what I could pick up from them, or what stuff could we adjust dates on? Or just even like, if you've got too many events on your calendar, how do we shift them around or whatever? But those little things where you just kind of build that team resiliency and the ability to support each other, I think it's huge.
Yeah, I was going to point back to our weekly meetings because they're half hour, really quick check-in. Everything we do is agenda driven, right? So it's not just like random conversation. It's very scripted, but it gives you the chance to say, like, I didn't get to work out last week. I didn't get enough sleep last week. Like, those are the things that we're talking about. And then we're learning from each other when that happens. What do we do about it, right? How are we going to make this coming week better? Mm-hmm. And literally, I heard it Monday. One of the newer team members said, "How can I help? The other two paralegals on the team, right? Like, what do you have on your plate? I know you're busy. I have some capacity. Help me. Let me know how I can help." And so it's just ingrained in the daily or weekly meetings, mm-hmm. but being honest about it, I think is the core.
Well, and I think us talking about the fact that, like, we need sleep, we need to work out, we need to get outside in the middle of the day, we need to move more, or we need to, like, I only want to work with people I'm really enjoying, and I'm not enjoying this one. Right? Like, all of those things, it says to the rest of the team, those things matter in this culture. Those are part of what we're measuring mm-hmm. when we're asking, is this working for you?
I love that so much, because that then allows everyone to say, "Oh, Gwen."
I was going to say, I have to hop off. I've got,
yes.
So you can feel free to continue.
We can be done. Okay. I was going to ask if there was anything else that you wanted to share quickly to wrap up, or we can just say, thank you so much. I'm so delighted that we got to do this. And I'm so thrilled to be in touch with you, and just really grateful for all the work that you're doing.
Yeah. I would love to continue the conversation. And I will add, I saw on your website all of your like hacks and, tips and tricks, and Whitney thinks I have them all, and you taught me some things. So
well, let's do part 2 and get into that stuff.
I love it.
Would love that.
Have a great day.
This was so good. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Stay tuned for part 2. Now, think about what small action you can take to support your well-being. Maybe it's taking 2 minutes of quiet. No music, no podcast, no phone, no scrolling, and just breathe. Maybe it's calling a friend. Maybe it's grabbing a drink of water. Maybe it's doing 5 squats. Maybe it's saying something kind to yourself. Whatever it is, do something just for you. Also, be sure to subscribe and send the podcast to a colleague. And if we're not yet connected on LinkedIn, please fix that. I'd love to know you. See you next time.